Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Nimrod Pod. I am your embattled host, Lou Stump, alongside my brother in arms, Chet Lifkit. Before we get started, make sure you're following at the Nimrod Pod on X, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and at Nimrod Pod on YouTube and Instagram. Like and share this episode to start the chain reaction, and leave a comment letting us know what you think of the show. Now, we have a very special episode lined up for you today. Joining us is a Republican candidate running for the U.S. House of Representatives in Florida's 6th District. He is not a career politician. He's a small business owner. He's running as a regular American citizen that wants to improve the everyday lives of his constituents. And he's uniquely positioned to do so because he's the only GOP candidate that actually lives in his district. And unlike his primary opponent, he is putting the people before his party. And most importantly, he is putting America first. Not Israel first, not Qatar first, not Bangladesh first. America first and America only. And it is for this reason he has the Nimrod stamp of approval. Please welcome to the program, Aaron Baker. Aaron, thank you so much for jumping on, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. It's our pleasure. I want to kick this off by giving you the floor to share your background with our audience. How did you go from a blue-collar small business owner in East Central Florida to a U.S. congressional candidate?
I drew the short straw. No. So a little bit of background. I was born in Florida. I grew up in Western Kentucky. I lived in Maryland for about 20 years. And at the end of 2022, start of 2023, I came back to Florida because there was just such a stark difference between northern states like Maryland, where you had to have a vaccine card to go out and eat, and states like Florida. What happened was my family usually goes on a cruise every year, and we couldn't go on a cruise that year, so we came to Florida instead, and we all went to Disney. We hadn't been to Disney in 20 years because most Floridians don't go to Disney, so we're like, oh, okay, well, let's all go to Disney. So we did, and you get here and maybe 10% of the people have a mask on, and this was during COVID, and you're like, we can actually go out to eat, and 12 of us can go out to eat at the same time. Not every other table is cordoned off. And we're like, yeah, Florida's doing something right. And I said, get me on the next flight to Florida. It's time to go back. So at that time, I was working for a general contractor in Maryland who also had a license in Florida. And so he said, do you want to go to Florida and handle all of the business there? And I said, sure. Long story short, that opportunity didn't work out. So now myself and my business partner have a construction company. We have a residential construction license as well as a roofing license here in Florida. And, just small business. The main thing is that we're connected to the people. We understand what's going on every single day. When I get in my truck to drive to my office, yes, I have a business card, so I can stop and fill my gas tank up. But that's not a luxury that everyone has. When I stop at my little Circle K right here, I always look to see how much gas the person before me got. And it's a constant reminder of the struggle that American people are dealing with on a daily basis. You'll see $5, $7, $10 worth of gas. Those are people that are living not paycheck to paycheck, but they're living day to day, and they're struggling. And Washington keeps telling us how affordable everything is, and that's not the reality. I just saw a news story come out today that they're going to have this like midterm bash, and they're going to focus on the economy. Well, you know what? It's about damn time they focus on the economy, because there are a lot of hardworking Americans that are struggling on a day-to-day basis. Every single day, they're struggling. People can't afford the groceries that they used to be able to afford. I mean, I go to Sam's Club. Um, now I'm like, okay, I know I have $150 or $180 to spend or whatever. Um, but you're certainly not just getting whatever you want. I mean, you're not filling your card up and then going to check out. I mean, you'll be broke, and you'll be broke real quick. So I I think that I bring that real world experience, and I'm not a millionaire. I do okay in business, but I mean, we're relatively new. We've been at this for 2 years on our own. Um, I just understand a lot about what our government is doing and a lot about what our government isn't doing. At the end of the day, government has one job, and that's to protect its citizens. And I really feel like right now the government is failing. Let me give you an example of that. There's a neighborhood in Ormond Beach called the Falls, and it's 599 manufactured homes. It's over 55 communities. So all of these people, 90 plus percent, are living on just Social Security. Um, their lot rent has gone from about $1,100 3 years ago to an average of $1,870 now. Spoke to one resident yesterday, and she said, "Aaron, some days I don't eat so that I can feed my dog." Guys, this is the United States of America. That's not right. Okay. I don't care, who's at fault. I don't care, who's not doing what they're supposed to do. But we have to have elected leaders that listen and know what's going on and have, some plan to fix something. We can't just get this continuous lip service of, okay, well, this week we gave $2 billion to Jordan, and we gave $3 billion to Egypt, and we gave $3 billion to Israel, and next week we're going to do the exact same thing. That is not America first. That is not why we reelected President Trump. That's that. Where we stand right now is not what we signed up for. And I think that any true American patriot would agree with that point at this exact time.
100%. Like the federal bureaucrats, these lifelong politicians that live in Washington, they don't understand the downstream effect of their policies. They don't understand the downstream effect that it has on us, the average Joe, the average citizen, when they send $385 million of Florida state money over to Israel. Like they don't understand what happens when you go send that money to Jordan, or you send that money to Africa, or you put a bunch of money in USAID and then you create Sesame Street for Afghanistan. Like there is a major downstream effect and things that we don't even realize. Like, we are very young. We're Gen Z. We're fairly fresh out of college, and we're dealing with the struggle of living paycheck to paycheck. And we're very healthy. And I recently had health issues. And I know gas is expensive. I know food's expensive. I know my rent's expensive. But I didn't realize how expensive healthcare was. You could say I have bad
Jeez.
healthcare insurance, but a lot of people don't have good healthcare insurance, and some people don't have healthcare insurance at all. And I'm paying hundreds of dollars for a copay for each of these appointments. What happens if you have a chronic disease and you're at the doctor's office all the time? You're being completely drained. I don't have thousands of dollars to spend every month on doctor's appointments and basic traditional healthcare. So again, we send all this money overseas to help foreign countries when in reality Americans are struggling, regular Americans. And it's so refreshing to have an average citizen candidate running like you against the epitome of the establishment in someone like Randy Fine. So God bless you for running. We needed it.
Yeah, I mean you're 100% correct. Um, I personally, just because of changing jobs, I went for about 9 months without health insurance because when you look at what's out there, you're talking about. I'm 45 years old. I don't smoke, but 720, $770 a month with a $4,000 deductible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No thanks. I'll just go lie on the street and die instead. This is not practical. I mean, if you have, um, well, first of all, if you're starting a business out, you're trying to take as little money out of the business as possible because you're trying to grow the business. So, if you're trying to live on, like $1,000 a week, you don't want you don't want to pay $700 a month plus for health insurance. It's not worth it. It's the pharmaceutical lobby, the insurance lobby, all of these lobbies have completely taken over our government, and it's at our own, to our own demise. I mean, we have to have people that understand we have to do better. I mean, we have to, or this country is just continuing to go down the drain. And that's not what I stand for. This is not the America that I grew up in, where seniors can't afford to eat, where I can't afford to have health insurance. This is this is not right. And our congressmen, are anyone on the federal level, to give two shits less. They'll say, okay, well, guess what? The Dow's at 50,000. Okay, is that going to pay for my health insurance? No, of course not. Oh, guess what? Well, apparently, JP Morgan Chase is on the wrong side of the silver market. So guess what? We need to print magically. The Fed needs to create $12 billion in the month of January to just put on our balance sheet. Well, what does that do? That dilutes the value of the dollars in my pocket. And now JP Morgan's out of trouble. Okay, nothing to see here. Keep moving on, folks.
It's called market manipulation. And
100%.
we're headed down a very dark path when it comes to our, you know, phenomenal US financial system. Like, I just poured about as much money as I have in my savings into silver because I know that when, you know, the full truth of these Epstein files comes out, and when we fail to retain the House and the Senate and the midterms, our stock market is going to take a hit. And what's going to surge when the stock market goes down? It's going to be those precious metals. So I think we're all feeling it, and we were all left looking for help, and nobody's coming to help us. And I think that kind of leads me to my next question. Like, what was your red pill moment? Like, what was, obviously affordability is an issue that's hitting every average American, but what was the moment that really radicalized you and said, "Hey, I need to start taking action"?
Well, I ran in the special election. So backstory. So Mike Waltz was appointed National Security Advisor. Um, and then I had a group of Republicans approach me and they're like, Aaron, we need somebody to run. Um, and, you know, Florida's a little bit weird. If you're an elected official, you have to resign in order to run. So, meaning if you're like a current county commissioner, or if you're a current state rep, current state senator, you have to say that you are going to resign, and that's irrevocable in order to run. So, most of the time, you're not going to get 12 different people running for the same thing. So basically, no one wanted to step up, and I said, "Well, I still have a country to save. I'll do it." And the more that I learned about Mr. Fine's reputation, and I mean, you can do. I think you could do a week's worth of research and still, not find everything. But I mean, just absolutely horrific reputation in the state of Florida, and he's just a big bully. So, I said I'll stand up to the bully. I'll do it. And as soon as the special election was over, I filed my paperwork the next day that I was going to run again because I knew from his reputation, okay, he's going to go to Washington. He's going to make an ass out of himself. And basically, what do I have to do? I just have to wake up in the morning and see what stupid thing Randy Fine said, overnight or the previous day. And, people just, it's like the movie where everybody's in a theater and they smack their head at the same time. It's like, why do you why do you disrespect the people that you're supposed to represent so much? I mean, not to mention, he does live 100 miles from Daytona Beach, which is the closest point of the congressional district. Um, and I really don't believe in flyover politics. I think that you need somebody that is a part of the community, somebody that goes to the grocery store right here, somebody that, goes to the Circle K, somebody that goes to Sam's Club, um, and just understands the bureaucracy that we live in. Let me give you the craziest example. So last night, I had a meeting over in Daytona Beach, and then I went to the city council meeting in Ormond Beach. So Ormond Beach in 1991 decided that they were going to do these really fancy sidewalks. So it's concrete in the middle, and then they have pavers around the edge, which looked great at the time. Well, guess what? The pavers started to sink over the course of time. Of course they did. Um, so in 2011, they determined that it was an issue. So in 2016, they decided that it needed to be fixed. Okay. This is 2026. They decided it needed to be fixed 10 years ago, and we can't even fix the sidewalks in one of the best tourist areas in the district. I mean, our government is so broken that it's almost like we need to take a stick of dynamite and completely start over. Um, this is not. Uh, I mean, it's so sad that you just have to laugh at it. You're like, how does it take 10 years to fix a sidewalk? And the only reason that this has become such an issue is because so many people have sued the city because they trip on the sidewalks. And I took a picture last night of one of the sidewalks, and there's like a 4 inch, gap there. And it just seems like common sense, but our government functions completely void of common sense.
I could not agree anymore. No, we need more glass buildings. We don't need it, functional sidewalks and beautiful architecture. It's a shame. We used to have beautiful cities. Like we used to be the home of the Enlightenment. Like this is where the world's best and brightest came to express themselves freely, and we've completely torched that. We don't have functional roadways, sidewalks, and we've totally taken the heart out of our infrastructure, the heart out of our architecture. And it's really heartbreaking, Aaron.
That's the perfect example. When Congressman Waltz had the seat, one of the things that he was working on was the Life Saving Gear for Police Act. Um, Basically, what that means is police, firefighters, EMS can purchase military surplus equipment. Okay, makes perfect sense. Well, guess what? Biden ended it with an executive order. Well, as soon as President Trump got back in, he reversed Biden's executive order. But it's one of those things that needs to be codified into law. Do you think that the least effective Congress in the last 40 years has done a damn thing about it? Absolutely not. And do you think that they'll do anything about it between now and the midterm election? Absolutely not. So once we no longer have control of the House and Senate and presidency like we do now, then we're up shit's creek, literally, because the next administration that comes in can just undo it with a pen. So that means that our police, our firefighters that we're sworn to help don't have the resources that they need. Um, Yesterday or day before yesterday in Daytona Beach, there was a family that came for the Daytona 500. The Daytona 500 was on Sunday. We have massive crowds in Daytona Beach. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area. I grew up going to Daytona Beach. My grandparents lived in uh, Winter Haven. My great grandparents lived in Lake Wells. So our closest beach was Daytona Beach. Family here with their 13-year-old kid and family is walking down the boardwalk 2 days ago. And somebody walks up and just slashes the kid's neck with
I
a
saw that.
box knife.
Disgusting.
I mean, okay, we need mental health in this country. We need the police to have every tool that they need. We need the firefighters, the EMS to be able to respond as quickly as possible. Our government is failing on every level right now.
I couldn't agree more. Like we have people struggling in the streets, people that are homeless, people that are addicts, and we're sending all of our money overseas. Like what happened to taking care of our own? Like if you want to keep thumping the Bible, Randy Fine and Ted Cruz about how we need to glorify Israel in order to go to heaven, like what about what Jesus said about taking care of the poor, taking care of the disadvantaged, taking care of the people that have been wronged. What happened to justice? What happened to us being God's representation on earth, a reflection of Jesus Christ on earth? And we are supposed to enact his will on humanity. Like, we are his representatives. We are held to a higher standard than everyone else in the world, the non-believers. So we have a duty to carry out his will, and he gives us free will because he's passing the torch to us and saying, hey, I'm giving you the power to take care of people, and we are letting him down. It's like spitting in God's face. But no, let's go spend more money to Israel because that's the only path to heaven. It's absolutely disgusting. You couldn't be any more right.
Let's build a railroad that costs $1 billion that goes from nowhere to nowhere in Rwanda. At some point, who cares? I want to be able to drive down the road and Daytona Beach and Palm Coast and St. Augustine in the villages in the neighborhood where I live. One of the meetings that I go to is in Marion County, which is kind of on the back, on the western side of the Congressional district. And from where I live to get there, in order, I can drive the long way, and the long way is all paved roads. It takes about 15, 18 minutes longer, but I can cut across um, 24th Street, and for 4 miles, it's unpaved. It's literally sand. And that's what we're okay with in the United States. We're okay with being able to build a railroad in Africa, but we can't pave the roads here in the sixth congressional district. I don't know what planet we're living on, but this is not what our forefathers had envisioned for our country.
Totally. I mean, clearly we have a broken system, and clearly Randy Fine is a complete scumbag. But running for political office is a major sacrifice, especially when you're running against the establishment. You're entering into the arena against some of the most powerful people in the world. Your opposition has this unlimited war chest funded by corporate oligarchs and even foreign nations. So you didn't have to do this, Aaron, and you have all the odds stacked against you. So why take on all this risk?
Who else is going to do it? I mean, if somebody else is going to step up and say, okay, well, I have $10 million in the bank and I can afford to do this all on my own, and maybe I'll have better digital marketing, and maybe I'll have shinier signs. Okay, but that's not the situation that we're in. There's no one coming to save us. We're either going to have to save ourselves, or we just give up on the country. I'm not ready to give up on the country. So what I do is, after the special election, I said, okay, this is only possible one of two ways. I either need a lot more money or I need a lot more time. So I have a lot more time. I mean, I've been at this for almost a year now. I go to every single place that I can possibly go to. Um, you know, Today, I only had one event. Yesterday, I had two events, and I just do it every single day, and I don't care. It is certainly a huge personal sacrifice. It would be so much easier to be sitting on the couch right now watching, whatever. But that's that's not how my mind works. I was born in 1980. Um, I grew up under Reagan, Bush Sr. I saw President Reagan in person in Bowling Green, Kentucky in 1988. And I remember to this day seeing the motorcade go by, and you were just in absolute awe. And you thought that our best days were in front of us. When I was a young kid, we would go over to Cape Canaveral and watch the space shuttle launch. Um, I remember, being in Central Florida, you could hear the sonic boom when the space shuttle landed, and all the windows in the house would go like this. Um, I want to get back to the point where Boeing isn't building bombs for politicians to sign and send overseas, that we're working on the next hypersonic jet to replace the Concorde. Um, American innovation. This is the greatest country that's ever been in existence, but we have to keep it. We can't we can't keep doing, you know, a lot of people say, okay, well, we give all this money to Israel, but 80% of it comes back to us. Okay, well, how about this? How about we not give them any, and then we use that 80% and let's work on American innovation. Let's work on the infrastructure. Let's work on things that will help us build a brighter future for the people that live here. And for heaven's sake, we have to end the H-1B visa scam. uh, you know, I had a kid from Embry-Riddle, which is Daytona Beach. Very, very, very smart gentleman. Uh, 22 years old, right out of college, applied for 13 different internships, and they're all filled by people with H-1B visas. That's not acceptable in the United States that I want to have a part of. We have to take care of Americans before we take care of the rest of the world.
Exactly. I mean, 75% of recent Gen Z college grads are unemployed because of this H-1B scam. We would rather import foreigners to take American jobs or offshore them to disgusting call centers in the middle of nowhere, India. And that is a slap in the face to the American people. I couldn't agree more. So you kind of touched on a few things, but at a very high level, how would you describe your political platform? Like, what are the key pillars? What issues matter the most to you?
What matters the most here in Central Florida is we want clean water, we want clean air, and we want the best beaches possible. We need to focus on infrastructure more than anything else in this district. We're estimated 15 to 20 years behind schedule as far as needed infrastructure. As far as my personal feelings, I am a Christian. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. I think that we need to bring more of a sense of community back to this entire region. Um, I think that once you lose the sense of community and you lose the sense of Christianity, then you start to go down this dark hole of where there is more violence in the neighborhood, where there is, um, more poverty, and that's not the road that we want to go down. So we need to get back to a sense of community, um, and that's mainly through religion.
I love that. So, what can you do from Washington then to improve the infrastructure and the sense of community in your district?
Okay. Well, first thing is you pass the Life Saving Gift for Police Act. The second thing that you do is work on exactly what Congressman Waltz was doing, which was beach renourishment for Volusia County. It's I have 65 miles of coast in this congressional district, so work on the beach renourishment, work on the Life Saving Gift for Police Act, work on the needed infrastructure. One thing that I would really like to push for is having the cleanest water possible. Well, what does that mean? Um, in Florida, if you test the water, we have all of these forever chemicals in our water. That's not good for anyone long term. Um, there is a way to remove that, but that's through reverse osmosis. It's expensive, and only one of the existing communities does that. If we could have help from the federal government to pay for that, because there's no way that all the individual municipalities can do that. But that's something that under the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, it really needs to be done. We need the cleanest drinking water that we can possibly get, and that's not what we have right now. Um, so, Life Saving Gift for Police Act, beach for nourishment, infrastructure, water. Those are all things that you can do on a federal level. Or you could do what our congressman does now, Randy Fine, and you could write legislation to ban the Wall Street Journal from members of Congress, or you could write legislation for the Thump Act, where you can run over protesters, um, or you can, basically get on TV and be an ass every day and see if you can offend 2 billion people. I think that's probably a record of how many people he offended yesterday and the day before, 2 billion. Um, that's not the kind of leadership that we need. We need leadership that lives here, works here, understands the community, and will go to Washington and will work every day in the best interest of this community.
Exactly. I'm sick and tired of the do nothing Republicans. Like you can do what Byron Donalds did. You can pass a non-binding resolution to condemn socialism. What does that accomplish, Byron Donalds? Absolutely nothing, and you disgust me. And that's how I feel about Byron Donalds, and that's why we need to get you and James Fishback and Mike Wilnaugh elected. It's so important that we drain the swamp, do what Trump was unable to do. And I'm loving everything I'm hearing out of you, Aaron. My next question, kind of to piggyback off of your platform, how have your political views evolved just since you launched your first campaign?
Well, that's a really good question, and I've got a really good answer for you. Because originally, when I first started down this journey during the special election, my policy platform said I would unequivocally support Israel. That is a 180 change of I don't want to support anybody on a foreign level now. Basically, um, e- electing me is almost like electing a second Thomas Massey, of where yes, I want to end the Fed. Um, I, I, th- I think I was one of those Republicans that walked around in Florida wearing the rose-colored glasses, and I thought everything was hunky dory. And then you peel the onion back one layer, and then the onion just goes poof, and you're like, well, what the hell just happened here? And it's it's not good. We've got, I mean, I would think it would be fair to say we have 10,000 problems that need to be fixed, and we have a very short period of time to do it. I think uh, once interest on our federal spending um, goes above 25% of all of our spending, I think we're cooked. And right now we're at about 18, 19%. There is a point of no return. And we're on the high speed train, and we're headed straight toward the point of no return, and we have got to hit the brakes real soon. Governor DeSantis was in Kentucky today speaking about a balanced budget amendment. I would love to have a balanced budget amendment. Well, why is it that the federal government can overspend every dollar that they take in by 150%? I don't get to say, okay, I'm making $60,000 a year, I'm going to go spend $90,000 a year. I mean, they're just doing it on such a fraudulent, massive scale that it has to stop.
I couldn't agree more, Aaron. Like, we've spent over $8 trillion fighting and funding wars for Israel. That's just one country, one country in this war on terror. And that ends up
I think that
being,
number's low.
I agree. I had purposely used a conservative number for that reason, but it's still over 20% of our total national debt. I think there's a moment for every, economic, fiscal, libertarian conservative where you used to support funding Israel's defense, and then you have a red pill moment like you did. And, James Fishback used to be pro-Israel. Tucker Carlson used to be pro-Israel. You name it, every conservative at some point in time was brainwashed. And it's largely because of this massive psyop in the megachurches of dispensationalism. But it's great to see that we're finally seeing pastors start to preach covenant theology and preach the Bible. And then you realize, oh, okay. So in Genesis, God creates a covenant with Abraham's family, his descendants. And then we get to Jacob, and the covenant gets passed on from a family to a nation. And we get to the Davidic covenant, and then we go from a nation to this kingdom. And then Jesus comes and tears the veil and creates the new covenant, where now the only path to salvation is through Jesus Christ. So Passover doesn't mean anything. Shabbat doesn't mean anything. The Sabbath doesn't mean anything. None of the rituals mean anything anymore. All you have to do is surrender your life to Jesus Christ and repent. There is now a path for everyone to get to heaven. But they use this psyop where the Rothschild's banking family, who owned the British Empire, goes into the Middle East and takes over Israel, kicks 7 million Middle Eastern Arabic Palestinians out, sends a bunch of Europeans in who are less related to Abraham than any of the actual Palestinians that still live there to this day. Very small numbers, shrinking by the day. And I think it just gets to the point where they've used this word Israel and they've weaponized it against Christians. And I think that is so evil. I think it is so evil.
Well, I could tell you my exact turning point. The exact turning point for me was Muhammad Ibrahim, who is the teenager from Florida, um, and born in Florida. Okay, American citizen, dual citizenship, American Palestine. Was visiting his family there. Was accused of throwing rocks at the IDF. Who knows the real story? The IDF courts have a 99.997% conviction rate. With spectral evidence if they desire. Um, so, not a single Republican in the state of Florida spoke up. And I'm like, this is still an American citizen. I don't care where you are on this planet. I don't care what you've done. You're still an American citizen, and you should have American elected officials fighting for your rights. You should not be sitting in jail uncharged with a crime. And I said, this is not right. And I couldn't get anyone, any other candidate, any other Republican with any, standing at all, not even a city council member to speak up and say, what's going on here? We're not allowed to question our greatest ally ever.
Exactly. And what Israel is doing by mistreating Americans is throwing gasoline on the fire.
Absolutely.
You talk about this gentleman from Florida. You can even talk about Tucker Carlson today, detained by Israeli law enforcement on his way out of the country after doing a 3-hour, very quick interview with the U.S. ambassador, Mike Huckabee. He gets detained and questioned. Like you understand they could have easily just wasted him and nobody would have known. But why would
So,
they do that?
yeah, I mean, I haven't, I saw early reporting. I had an event that I had to go to, and then I drove home and I'm, with you guys. So I saw some early reporting. I didn't know what the actual story was there.
Yeah. Basically, they detained him on his way out at the airport. They questioned his producer intensely, asking, "What did you talk about with Huckabee? What was discussed? We want to see everything." They confiscated his passport, but thankfully, they eventually let him go.
How long
But
did they hold him?
I don't know exactly how long. It must have been a decent amount of time, like probably at least an hour, because there was a pretty decent waiting period where nobody knew what happened to him.
Yeah, I really want to know all the details of that story. Even just traveling through, as a point of transit. Um, I think that the Israeli government is it's like they're just trying to make the situation worse. I mean, it's like Ben Giver and Randy Fine. They, they have a secret signal chat, and they're like, "Okay, what evil thing can I do today?" And they're stupid. There's just no sense in half the things that they do. If you want to talk about the rise of anti-Semitism, what's the number one cause of the rise of anti-Semitism? Randy Fine. They need to put duct tape over that guy's mouth and send him to Antarctica or something. Um, you, you know, the I really despise the Israeli government, the leadership in the government. I had a reporter last night that had asked me about AZAPAC, and it was talking all about this, and I said, "Listen, uh, you're talking about the prime minister of a country that is a criminal. He literally, the president of the United States has asked the president of Israel to pardon him for bribery and corruption. The man is a criminal.
100%. Like Israel and the Epstein class, they thrive off of hate and they use anti Semitism as a weapon to take away our freedoms. And I think this is a perfect segue. I want to talk about the infamous Randy Fine. Now, according to Track APAC, Randy Fine has accepted over $450,000 from the pro Israel lobby for his reelection campaign. However, he said publicly that he's not in it for the money. So, like, what is he in it for? He is evil. Like, clearly, this is no ordinary primary election. We have a candidate that's talking about letting children starve away. We have a candidate that is comparing Muslim Americans to dogs. We have a candidate who is pro genocide. We have a candidate that is just a bloodthirsty monster. And I think this is no ordinary primary election. This is a spiritual battle of good versus evil. So, can you just explain to our audience why it's so important that you make Randy Fine a one-term congressman?
It's to every point that you just made. When we have an elected member of Congress say that may the streets of Gaza overflow with their blood, that is unacceptable. When we have an elected representative that says we nuked Japan twice, maybe we need to do the same thing here. That is unacceptable. When you see the lack of humanity that has come out of the Gaza Strip, that is unacceptable as Americans. We have never stood for that ever. Uh, it 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 breaks my heart when you see the Israeli government doing double tap strikes on I mean, you can find 100 videos of double tap strikes. It's unacceptable. America is the strongest nation on the planet. We need to put our foot down and say F you, or we're done with it. And we need to say that we're done with these politicians that are going to continue supporting it and continue supporting a simple lack of humanity. I mean, how is it that elected representatives can let people in their own congressional district go without food because they need to feed their dog, but we can certainly make sure that everyone in another country has free health care, access to abortions, and free college? I mean, F you, the government is screwed up and somebody needs to fix it.
Amen, brother. Fine has been calling for legislation in Florida that would mandate 5 years of jail time for anti Semitic free speech. Fine thinks that conduct is not protected by the First Amendment, and he wants to turn hate speech into a felony. So he's going to turn your free speech into hate speech under the guise of hate speech, and then he's going to throw you in jail for it. And just last month, we saw the Miami Beach mayor send police to a woman's house for
Over a Facebook
criticizing
post.
for a Facebook post criticizing the mayor's Zionist policies. So my question to you, Aaron, is will you promise to protect all forms of free speech from the federal level and then go after state and local governments that are violating your constituents' First Amendment rights?
100%. And I don't care if you're Christian, if you're Hindu, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, what religion you are. I don't care what race you are, if you're black, white, brown, you know, all the little children of the world, black and yellow, brown and white, they are precious every sight. Um, I don't care who you are. You deserve the exact same equal protection from your government. And that's not what we're getting right now. We're getting uh, almost like a super class of, or a higher class of people in this country. Um, every one of us are created equal in God's eyes, and I believe that we have to do a thousand times better than what we're doing right now.
You could be more right. Have you spoken to Mr. Fine at all since announcing your campaign?
We've been in the same location a couple different times. Well, let me ask a question. When is this podcast going to air?
It'll be tomorrow or Friday. I can also push
Okay.
it depending on how you're going to answer this question.
Okay. So I met with my attorney today. We're filing a federal lawsuit against Mr. Fine for violating my constitutional rights. The Supreme Court has decided that you have the constitutional right to not be blocked by your congressional representative or your representative at any level. And Mr. Fine has blocked me on social media, and he blocked me after he made a stupid post about the halftime show and referring it to the uh, federal communications. And I wish he had somebody on staff that spoke Spanish, because if he had anyone on his staff that spoke Spanish, they would certainly know that the lyrics that he posted um, was not the lyrics that Bad Bunny sang. um, my my grandmother's Puerto Rican, so I I know exactly what they said, and they're like, "No, they didn't say what he posted." So anyway, I had made a comment about his comment, and then he blocked me. You can't do that. I am a constituent. I live here in the sixth congressional district. Um, I was the only Republican in the, in the last election that lived in the district. We may have somebody else hop into the race. I don't know, but I don't know if we'll be able to use the same signs this time. So there's a federal lawsuit coming out tomorrow against him from me.
Wow. Well, we'll hold off on posting this until that happens, and we'll consider this a breaking news story from the Nimrod Pod. That is powerful. How about this? What is your message to Randy Fine? This will be coming out after this lawsuit is public. What do you want him to
Just
know, since he
just
doesn't want
go.
to hear you on X?
Yeah, I mean, I wish he would just go away. I mean, Randy Fine has the personality. He would be the perfect ambassador to Antarctica. Put him in a little ice hut down there where he can't bother anyone. He just is not the type of person that you want uh, around constituents. I mean, he's so arrogant. Anytime he walks in a room, he's got, you know, 12 sheriff's deputies with him, like he's the most important person on the planet. I mean, do you think anybody's really going to attack Randy Fine? No, of course not. I just I just want him to go away.
I think we
Just
all do. I
oh,
love your idea. Let's make him the senator, the sole senator of Antarctica. Or maybe when Trump takes over Greenland, we'll give him Greenland, and we'll say no money in, no money out going to Israel. You know what? Maybe we'll let maybe a couple sleeves of Oreos in, but no money out, and we just don't have to worry about Mr. Fine anymore. How about that?
it's not Oreos. Fishback says it's Cheetos.
Cheez-Its. Yeah,
Cheez-Its, that's right, Cheez-Its, I'm sorry, Cheez-Its. You say,
yeah,
I heard him driving when he was eating Cheez-Its.
yeah. We'll give him a couple pallets of Parmesan dusted Cheez-It bites. How about that? All you, Randy, on the American taxpayer. I have no problem sending you a, a couple buckets, a couple ships worth of Cheez-Its just to get you out of my hair. That would be awesome. That's hilarious.
Be like Scrooge McDuck, growing up, where Scrooge would jump in the vault of gold coins. Randy could just jump in the entire container of Cheez-Its.
Yeah, just a ball pit of Cheez-Its. That would be so great. Chet, do you have any questions about Randy or about any of Mr. Baker's policies before we move on to the next topic?
Sure, sure. So, Mr. Baker, one thing I wanted to give you the chance to answer was a lot of people in this country, a lot of young people, myself included, have been lied to over and over by politicians. A lot of people say a lot of things, a lot of people don't do them when they get into office. So, I like all of your positions so far. I like all of your stances. What makes you different from those politicians? What is a reason that you can give people out there that they can trust you as somebody in Washington and you won't just roll over like mostly everybody else?
I'm just a normal guy. I'm in the community so much, people know that I'm gonna show up. Uh, People know that, you know, they're gonna find me out in the community every chance that I can get. My dad had said, "Well, if you win this time, then you're going to be in Washington a lot. And I said, I'm going to be in Washington as little as I can possibly be in Washington. Your job is to represent the people, and the people don't live in Washington. The people live in the congressional district. So I believe that you need to spend as much time as possible in the congressional district. And that doesn't mean taking trips to country 6,500 miles away where you may or may not get detained, apparently. Um, and your passport seized. I still want to know all the details because that's very troubling. Um, Take care of the people. And I believe that I have built that trust that people know that they can come walk in my office, pound their fist on my desk and say, Aaron, I need this taken care of. And I'll be there.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Another question I have is, we've seen the lines between Republican and Democrat, right and left wing become kind of blurred in the past several years. Do
Sure.
you have any positions that you hold today that might be considered left wing or might have been considered left wing just a few years ago?
I think the on a national level, um, most Republicans aren't probably as pro environment as most Florida Republicans are. Florida Republicans are very, I mean, don't mess with our beach, don't mess with our air, don't mess with our water. Um, and I think that that's probably a lot more kind of on the extreme side of the Republican Party, where most, you know, don't care if they're in Ohio and there's a train wreck and there's oil spots in the creek. That's not us in Florida. As far as any like radical positions, I don't think so. The one thing that I will do is I'll go talk to anyone. If you're elected, you're not just elected to represent Republicans. This district is about 38% Republicans, about 30% Democrats, and the rest is no party affiliation. Well, it's your job to represent all of them. So, one thing that I would do that most haven't done in the past is, I don't care what your party affiliation is. I'm still there to help you. I don't think that's a radical position. I don't think I have very many, if any, really kind of Democrat radical positions up my sleeve that I can think of.
Absolutely. No, I understand. So I heard you say basically, don't mess with our stuff. That's kind of what a lot of these Florida Republicans stand for. That reminds me of libertarianism. And I want to ask your opinion on this. What is the balance? What's the correct balance between libertarianism and authoritarian right wing politics? Where does the government need to step in to help the people?
Well, the government's number one obligation is to protect the people, um, and that's at all turns. So that means making the road safe. That means keeping the people safe. If they're walking down the boardwalk in Daytona Beach, um, that means keeping the water supply clean. It means no chemtrails in the air. That's protecting the people. As far as libertarianism comes in, I think that a best example of that would be, last year we had the marijuana amendment on the ballot, or not last year, but 24, we had the marijuana amendment on the ballot. And everyone really came out against it. And one of the things that Governor DeSantis said was, I'm not going to support this if you can't grow your own. Okay. So it shouldn't be where, four or five large conglomerations are able to control what the marijuana sales of the state of Florida. The the issue that I had, um, I, I lived in Maryland where recreational marijuana was almost legal. The problem is you go to like downtown Baltimore, the whole place smells like pot. It's not pleasant. I don't want that to happen to Florida. So if there was some balance of, they wanted to say, okay, you can have a certain amount of recreational marijuana. If you could grow your own, I wouldn't really have a problem with that. But I think that where the authoritarian government steps in is to say, okay, well, you can grow, you know, 20 plants or, whatever you might need for personal consumption. That doesn't mean that you can go plant 2,000 plants and start selling it to everybody on the planet. So there's a balance.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Lou.
Awesome. Well, you're talking about libertarianism, and there's libertarian foreign policy and there's libertarian domestic policy. We've talked a lot about foreign policy, specifically with Israel, but I want to talk a little bit about this new international order that's been created. So when Trump captured Maduro, it reorganized the entire world order and we became the American empire essentially. And we now exist in a multipolar world where Russia controls their sphere of influence, China controls their sphere of influence, and the United States controls the Western hemisphere. So Aaron, have your foreign policy views changed at all just since Trump's raid on Venezuela? Like, where do we draw this line between nationalism and imperialism? Because libertarians are very anti-war.
Well, I think that we need to get back to a point where we respect the Constitution. The Constitution says that under the War Powers Act, that if you're going to go to war, that you need congressional approval. I know that obviously President Trump did not get congressional approval um, for the Maduro raid, or even speak to the Gang of Eight ahead of time. No one knew. It was just, you know, that's not right, people. I mean, come on now. I mean, that's not what the Constitution says. If you're going to, they did it under the guise of executing a arrest warrant. But essentially, I think that just about any country in the world would consider capturing their leader as an act of war. Now, I guess if you're the United States, you can get away with it. But, what if somebody goes to Israel and says, well, Mr. Netanyahu, you're accused of these international crimes in the international court, and we're going to arrest you? Is the world just going to stand by and let that happen? Well, of course not. So, where do you draw the line? I think at a minimum, Congress has to be able to exercise the War Powers Act. And that's something that should be exercised.
Yeah. I mean, if you tried to capture Netanyahu, I think someone's clicking the big red button, and that would not end well for anyone. So I kind of want to flesh this out a little bit. So do you believe that Trump and his administration violated the Constitution by invading Venezuela without congressional approval? Like, would you go after them for this, or would you let it slide if you were there right now?
If I were there right now, I would let it slide, because they're saying that they had the power to do it under because there was
Loophole.
the Southern District of New York basically created a loophole for them. And one of the people that advises my campaign is a constitutional attorney. She's actually argued cases in front of the Supreme Court. She was working on a Supreme Court brief. And she's like, yeah, there is kind of this one loophole of Southern District of New York did issue an arrest warrant. Does the military usually execute arrest warrants? No, but they did.
So do you think there are, I definitely totally understand where you stand now. They use some sort of loophole, but it's not right. And we should probably revisit the War Powers Act to make sure that these loopholes can be closed. Do you think that there are exceptions? Like, for example, like strategic chess moves to secure our hemispheric sovereignty, Greenland, for example?
These are all talking points to keep us entertained. I mean, that's it. There's no, I understand the strategic value of Greenland, but there's no authority that Congress can give to the president to take over a foreign country, a sovereign foreign country. Now, could Congress give President Trump the authority to purchase it? Well, the Congress could, under the Constitution, since they control the purse strings, give the president the authority to purchase it. But I mean, come on, just come up with some deal, build a base somewhere, do something that's not entertaining us, do something that's actually going to help us. Let's spend the money on infrastructure. Um,
Hmm.
it, if you want to build a base, make a deal with Denmark, build a base somewhere, and call it a day.
Totally. It's America first, America only. I really respect those answers. And we can move on to domestic policy because that's obviously more important in just a minute here. But while we're on the topic, let's look across the pond. Do you think this new international order, this multipolar world, puts us in a better or worse position to improve relations with Russia?
I don't care. Why do I care? I
Well,
care
because
about the people.
it could trigger a nuclear war. That's the
It's
problem.
it's 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 not going to happen. It's more entertainment value for us. Again, let me take care of the people here in Ormond
Hmm.
Beach and Daytona Beach. The world's going to figure itself out. I mean, we're not going to have a nuclear war with Russia.
Yes, that is the exact right answer that I was hoping for, Aaron.
It's never going to happen. Okay.
Right. Exactly. And I think this new multipolar world allows us to worry about our hemisphere, and then Russia can worry about their sphere of influence. If they want to tussle
Well,
around with Ukraine, that's not our problem. Go ahead. And in the global new world order that we were in before, like under the UN, we were handcuffed and we were being dragged into every single scuffle that went on in Europe, especially Eastern Europe, because of NATO. But Trump basically pulled us out. I mean, I have so many problems with Trump, but geopolitically, I see the importance of Russia. And I think abandoning these globalist organizations puts us in a position to normalize relations with Russia,
we should.
especially exactly 100%. I mean, this
I mean,
Ukraine war has completely drained our country.
you're 100% correct. I mean, like I said, when we started, the reason I came back to Florida was because we used to go on a cruise every year. One of the cruises that we had planned before all this nonsense started was a cruise that went through Eastern Europe and, up to St. Petersburg. That's one of the places that I wanted to visit. Well, guess what? I'm not going there anytime soon. You know, it's not bad to have normalized relations with Russia.
Amen. I completely agree.
The
But
Russians are not going to nuke us. Okay.
yes, I mean, clearly, we've
That's
put
not
Putin.
even good entertainment. That's,
Yes, we've put Putin through hell, and he still hasn't nuked us. He still hasn't attacked us. Like I don't think he's going to hit the big red button. So you're totally right. And I'm going to move on from foreign policy because it's not that important. Let's talk domestic policy, specifically immigration. We kind of talked about like where do we toe the line between libertarianism and then more like authoritarian right wing government. So my question to you, this is a big issue right now heading into the midterms. Can we have mass deportations without violence?
so, I had talked about this and spoken about this quite a few different times. What I think the administration should do is focus on all of the low hanging fruit. And what I mean by that is there are 27 governors in the United States that are Republicans. Focus on the Republican states that want to work with you under the 287G program so that they can hold um, detained illegal immigrants and then ICE can deport them. Um, if Minneapolis wants to be a hellhole, if San Francisco wants to be a hellhole and if Seattle wants to be a hellhole, okay, go for it. Guess what? We're going to fix the rest of the United States while you all are destroying what you're destroying. And you see it with the migration from California to Texas, California to Nevada, California to Florida. Um, I mean, eventually they're going to run out of people to tax in California. And the state's going to go bankrupt. And why? Because they've gone morally bankrupt before they went physically bankrupt. I think focus on the low hanging fruit. I've said that all along. I mean, it's so easy. I mean, I think out of 67 counties in Florida, 64 or 65 are cooperating under the 287G program. Okay. Do everything that you can in those 64 or 65 counties. Do you really want to go to uh, Broward County and Fort Lauderdale and fight, and West Palm Beach and fight with the local leaders there? No,
Mhm.
focus on the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Do what's easy
Although
first.
I think we can quarantine all those deep blue cities and kind of let nature take its course. Those issues will sort themselves out organically. I think here's where there becomes a little bit of nuance in the situation. The Trump administration has put all their deportation efforts into ICE, into DHS, into federal law enforcement going in there and forcibly removing people. And I think we are in a situation that we've never been in before. We have tens of millions of foreign invaders, military age men for the most part, that have come into our country undocumented. They were let in undocumented. And we don't even know where some of them are. They're dangerous people, and we have to get them out somehow. Here's where I think there's nuance, is because President Trump hasn't pulled any of the major economic levers. He's been protecting all of his friends in the hospitality industry. I think before you focus on funding ICE and sending them into the streets to physically remove people who don't want to leave because they're getting all this welfare and they're getting money from the government, from our tax dollars, like, why don't we ban corporations from hiring illegals instead of giving exemptions to agriculture and hospitality industry? Like, why don't we ban welfare and benefits for these illegals so that they can't afford to live here? And like why don't we deny them citizenship and then eliminate birthright citizenship for their children so that we don't have to worry about replacement migration in the generations to come? Like, why don't we debank illegals by fining banks who don't seize the accounts of illegal immigrants? And then why don't we have an immigration moratorium so at the very least nobody else can get in here before we fix our problems?
Well, perfect example of that is here in Florida. They tried to pass what was called the Trump Act, and that was when Randy Fine was in the state Senate um, before during the time between January and April when he was a state senator. Um, they wrote this god awful bill that took the immigration authority away from the governor and gave it to the agricultural commissioner to enforce uh, immigration. I mean, it made no sense. And they, of course, named it the Trump Act and tried to pass it off as, this is, one of those bright, shiny things that has to get done. And it's anything but. Fortunately, Governor DeSantis stood up and said, you people are full of BS. Um, and it didn't happen. But, the federal government needs to keep an eye out for the states that pass these, crazy things. And to your exact point, if Minneapolis wants to be a sanctuary city, that's fine. We're not going to give you any money. Um, Money controls everything. Let me give you a perfect example of that. We'll switch back to foreign policy real quick. Every year between 2006 and now, we've given Iran anywhere between $25 million and $2 billion every year. Okay, if you want people to stop doing bad things, stop giving them money. If you give them money, they will continue to do bad things. If New York City wants to be a sanctuary city, okay, that's your prerogative. Stop giving them federal money. And guess what? The problem will go away in 10 minutes because New York City won't last 11 minutes without federal funds. You can't make the
Exactly.
tax rate high enough.
Right. These foreign invaders won't go out kicking and screaming if they can't afford to live happy, healthy lives here. It's that simple. Like the
Well,
reason
if
they
you,
want to stay is because we're shoveling money down their throat.
first of all, we need to end chain migration. Okay, that's one. We need to end the H-1B visa program. We need to say that if you're coming to the United States, um, there is no social services available through the government for the first 5 years that you're here. Okay, just for example, if you want to move to New Zealand, you have to prove that you can sustain yourself. Okay, well, guess what? If you want to come here, you need to not be on the government's payroll. We could fix so many issues if we stop doing stupid stuff. I mean, you have uh, some crazy amount, like 49% of Somalians are on uh, some type of government assistance. Okay, who made this decision? I mean, this is crazy. And where do we get the money? Well, we just print the money. So that makes every dollar that you work for, that I work for, worth less and less and less every year. This endless cycle has to stop.
These are corrupt actors that are gaming the system for their own benefit. Like the reason that this Somali fraud scheme existed was to launder money for elite oligarchs. That was the whole reason they did it. And you see this all over the federal government, and you're going to see this all over the country. We're starting to see it in Ohio. We're starting to see this massive Indian H-1B crisis in Texas, and it's absolutely disgusting. So, I think you're right. We need more grassroots, common sense politicians, populist candidates. And I think that's what you bring to the table. I want to pivot over to something that's near and dear to your state. So, Florida governor candidate James Fishback plans to offer a $1 billion cash reward to any scientist that can create a strand of citrus that is impervious to greening. So, Aaron, how can you help save the Florida citrus industry from the federal level?
Well, you could do a better job of funding the University of Florida. The University of Florida is already working on that. The name of the strand variation is like, I can't remember.
Donaldson tree, maybe?
Donaldson, thank you. Okay. So University of Florida is already working on that. Um, I don't think that he needs to necessarily offer $1 million to the first person to create it. It's something that the University of Florida has been working on for 20 years. Um, I have full faith that the University of Florida, if it's possible, the University of Florida and their agricultural department is one of the best in the United States, can absolutely figure out which orange tree
Impervious
is
to greening. Exactly. Yeah. Like, let's let the experts figure it out. Let's actually give them money. Let's fund things that help Americans as opposed to sending money overseas. Couldn't agree more. And, I've heard you mention that your grandparents owned orange groves in Florida. And as you know, this citrus greening is this Chinese bacterium that arrived in Florida around in the early 2000s via the Asian citrus psyllid, much like the SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. So I believe this is cut and dry biological warfare, and it should be treated as an attack by foreign adversaries on American soil. And given that this is a national security issue, and you don't need to know anything about the biology behind oranges, I believe you are uniquely positioned to lead the charge on this effort from the federal legislature. So my question to you is, will you fight to deliver justice for the Florida families and farmers, just like your own, whose livelihoods were destroyed by this Chinese virus?
absolutely. One of the things, I grew up on about 160-acre farm in Western Kentucky. So, I think I'm uniquely positioned to understand the agricultural industry in this region because it still exists. Florida used to be the number one beef producer in the United States. We're not even close anymore. Uh, we used to be the number one citrus producer in this hemisphere. I mean, we're, uh, from where our peak production was to now, we're at 9% of what our peak production was. 9%. I mean, we have to take care of our farmers. I mean, without farmers, we don't eat. What are we going to do? Are we going to eat 3D printed oranges? You know, Let me know how many forever chemicals is in a 3D printed orange. Enough that'll
Exactly. Yeah,
probably kill us in a week.
totally. Yeah, we don't need more genetically modified oranges. We can bring back the industry that built this state. And industries like it, like cattle ranching. Like we need to get back to the basics and restore the great state of Florida. Now, I won't pepper you with any more orange questions as much as I love talking about oranges. But let's get to big picture as we kind of coast to the end of this. So, President Trump's mishandling of the Epstein files has caused this massive exodus from the MAGA movement. So do you think the GOP can be reformed, or does it need to be abandoned entirely?
Well, I've had that question many times because people are like, "Well, why don't you switch to the America First party? Why don't you run as America First?" Well, it's not going to work. Okay, this is a system that we have, and we have to fix it. Uh, I'm out speaking to different groups every single day, and when you speak truth to heart, people still get it. People still are like, "Okay, yeah, I can." I can not look at the bright shiny mailer that APEC's going to put in my mailbox that says vote for Randy Fine 2,700 times. That we can see through it. We have to get to a point where we're educating voters much better. We have to get to a point where voters are smart enough to read through the nonsense, and we have to get back to a point where civic engagement occurs. Right now, if I take my congressional district, roughly 800,000 citizens, and I look at the maximum number of votes that I could possibly need to win the primary is 40,000. That's a 5% civic engagement. So that's the maximum number that you could possibly imagine needing. When people think that this can't be done, or that um, you can't work hard enough, there's not enough time to do this. Well, I'm going to try to prove every one of them wrong, because you can work, but it takes, you know, some days you're just like, you're so tired. And tonight, I had a event to go to in DeLand, which is about 35 minutes away, and then come back in time for this. And I was sitting there right before I left thinking, maybe I'll just skip the event in DeLand, and, I'll just have a nice dinner and get some rest. And I said, no, that's not me. That's not me. I have to keep going. I cannot let up for even 1 second. I don't have the ability to back down, and I'm simply not going to.
I mean, I just love to hear that from political candidates. Like if we want to talk about 2028, 2032, can a third party or independent candidate win? Maybe. But if we're looking at 2026, if we're looking at the here and now, this is our system, and we either reform the party or we allow the entrenched incumbents to overcome Washington even more than they already are. We allow the deep state to put us in a stranglehold. Like, to steal from the great James Fishback, I think there's nothing left for us to conserve necessarily, but regular Americans are yearning for leaders who will shatter this system into 1,000 pieces and rebuild on our founding principles. Like we say this all the time on this show. The only answer to 1984 is 1776. And I believe right wing populists are drastically downplaying the importance of the 2026 primaries. Not the midterms, the primaries. And I'll tell you one thing, Fox News boomers won't be showing up to vote in primary elections, but pissed off America First young people, Gen Z and millennials, will.
Well,
It,
the $1 million question is, how many 18 to 40-year-olds can we get to go vote in the primary? It is the purple and blue striped unicorn that has never happened in Republican primary politics. If we can get that 18 to 40 block out to vote, then we have a chance to just completely change GOP politics for the next generation.
exactly. Like the time is now to restore our God given rights, and we cannot afford to wait another 2 years and just punt to 2028 or even 2032. I refuse to believe that we cannot vote our way out of this. So, Aaron, what is your message to discouraged GOP voters?
You have to keep the faith. You have to believe that candidates like myself will come along, will always have your back, will not forget where they came from, or not forget the people that they're working for. And if I'm fortunate enough to represent the 6th congressional district in Florida, and I ever get to the point where I have a constituent say, I tried to call my congressman and I never got a call back from his office, I would quit and I would fire my entire staff, because first and foremost, what's the number one goal? Protect the people. We cannot give up.
Real quick, Aaron, it's one of my views that we've lost a lot of ground to the left and the Democrats over the past, several decades, due to the fact that those type of people are the ones that send their children into politics. I think that people on the right side of the aisle, or conservatives, they tend to think that politicians are liars, and they send their children or their friends or themselves into honest careers that are good for all the people in America. I, for one, think that we need more people like you to step into the arena and become politicians, to take the reins of their local and federal legislature to try and take this country back from the inside. What's your message to people that might be on the fence about jumping into politics, about running for a state representative position or a senator position? What's your message to them? What's your inspiration?
Even even local races, city council, school board, all of those, every single elected position is important. It does. You don't have to just wake up and say that you're going to run for Congress. I mean, it happens to be that I've never been in politics before, but and I'm running for Congress. Well, it just this weird puzzle came together for me of this opportunity, and I just happened to really despise my opponent. And I think that I could do a 1,000 times better job and be 1,000 times more cordial to the constituents that live here. But at every single level, don't be scared. Um, when I first got into this, I didn't have anyone to help me. Now, what I see is I see other candidates, um, other congressional candidates, other candidates for um, city council, for county council. And, you know, I try to help in any way possible, meaning that, I know where to get the literature printed. I know where to get the website made. I know who has the least expensive signs. I know, who can do the website. Um, it, don't be scared to jump in, and don't be scared to ask other people for help. I wish that my first go around, um, that I had somebody that would have said, okay, we're really going to, we're going to sit down, we're going to give you all this information. And I didn't. I'm like, okay, I'm running for Congress. What do I do now? There's no per se handbook. So um, I think that get involved. Um, if it's something as simple as city council, obviously we need good people on the city council um, that can make decisions and make things happen. It's taken 10 years and we still don't have sidewalks that we can walk on in Ormond Beach. I mean, that's a city issue. That's certainly not a federal issue. Just don't be scared to get involved.
Wow, that was a phenomenal question, Chad, and you couldn't be more right, both of you. We have to get involved. Like, nobody's coming to save us. It's something Mike Wilnoss said to us last week. Nobody's coming to save you. You have to take action. It's you. Now, I figured we'd end on a fun segment. So I want to do a quick lightning round. I'm going to give you a name, and you just say the first word that comes to mind. Does that sound good?
Let's go.
Okay. Thomas Massey.
Patriot.
Ron DeSantis.
Good guy.
James Fishback.
Patriot.
Byron Donalds.
Dipshit.
Randy Fine.
Bigot.
Donald Trump.
Meh.
Would you accept an endorsement from Donald Trump?
Well, as Ronald Reagan says, if somebody wants to give me money, I hope they're giving me money because they agree with me, not because they disagree with me. I don't think that I would ever get an endorsement from President Trump because electing me is almost like electing a lieutenant for Thomas Massey.
Good point. So, what would your advice be to Donald Trump? You don't think you're getting an endorsement. What would your advice be to him as a fellow American who wants the best for our country on how to win back public trust on this Epstein issue?
Fire the attorney general, hire Matt Gaetz, and start arresting people.
Bingo. Next one, Nick Fuentes.
I've never gotten into the Nick Fuentes craze, so neutral.
Fair. He's made it very clear as of recent that he will be using his nonprofit called the America First Foundation alongside his massive social media platform to campaign against GOP candidates that put the interests of foreign nations over America. And earlier this week, I saw a clip where Nick Fuentes said, someone needs to stand up and say Randy Fine is disgusting, morally reprehensible, and damn him. And it sounds to me like you're that someone he's searching for. Now, I'm not sure if he's ever reached out to you or
He
if you
has
guys
not.
even know who each other are, but would you accept an endorsement from him or his foundation if it was offered?
As President Reagan says, if somebody wants to give you money, you hope that they're giving you money because they're agreeing with you. The same thing goes for an endorsement. So if you agree with all of the things that I say, I I have no problem with it. That's why I don't think that I could get an endorsement. The endorsements don't come from President Trump. They come from Susie Wiles and her band of thieves. Um, you know, they would never endorse me because I'm the complete opposite. Like I said, I'm you know the lieutenant for Thomas Massey. I'd be like, okay, here I am. What do I need to do? He's like, just vote no on everything. I'm like, well, can I vote with the Republicans 91% of the time? Sure, you can vote with the Republicans 91% of the time, but the other 9% of the time, they're protecting pedophiles, they're starting foreign wars, and what was the third one?
National debt,
Yeah,
spending all
and
our
they
money.
just spend all of our money. And I mean, he's 1,000% right. You know, I'm not going to be a rubber stamp. I'm not a rubber stamp at all. You're probably going to be exactly the 91% of the time I'm going to vote with you. But if you want to do stupid stuff and if you want to give money away and you want to fund Ukraine, where they just have pallets of cash apparently and suitcases full of cash, and um, I'm not for it. I'm not for it.
Very diplomatic response. So you passed. Those are some good answers to the game. Wanted to have a little fun, but I just want to say one last thing. So we've decided to turn this show into a pro bono social media campaign for every America First patriot heading into these primaries. And before we get to your closing remarks, who are a few other grassroots candidates that you recommend we get on our show?
Mark Nugent, Texas 3. That voting is happening right now. Um,
Early voting.
Early voting is happening right now. You've got Mike. You've already had Mike on. There's some others that I'm pretty friendly with, but it's a pretty short list of who I would who I would actually vouch for. But basically go down the AZAPAC candidate list and you know um, go to their website and click on candidates, and most of them are exactly what you said. Stop foreign entanglements.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And what AZAPAC's doing is really important. And they're making it very easy for us to see where the good guys are, where are the good candidates that we can trust. So I appreciate you giving us a little intel, a little peek behind the curtain. So, Aaron, what is your final message to our audience and how can they support your campaign?
Educate yourself first, and then talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your congregation. If you go to church, talk to your coworkers. This isn't something that we can all hide behind a closed, a veil and say, okay, well, we're just going to come out and vote on election day, and that's going to be enough. That is not going to be enough. We have to go vote on election day, and we have to take 3 people with us on election day to vote. And it may be inconvenient, and it may be, why am I doing this? But the amount of votes that you need in a congressional primary at most is 5% of the total population. When you boil it down to that, you don't need 1,000,000 votes to win. The most number of votes that anyone has ever gotten in Florida's 6th congressional district in the primary was Governor DeSantis when it was his congressional district, and that was 42,000. Well, guess what 42,000 is? Right over 5% of the total population. So this can be done, but it's going to take every single one of us talking to our friends, talking to our neighbors, talking to our coworkers, talking to um, the other people in our congregation in our houses of worship. It can be done. Don't get discouraged. Don't think that one vote does not make a difference. Every single vote counts.
Amen. And I'll flash this up on the screen. If you want to support Aaron, here's his campaign website, aaron4fl6.com. Every dollar matters. Every repost matters. Every share matters. Every forwarded link matters. You don't have to break the bank to support people. And I'll say this. A grassroots campaign is not won with money. It's won with social media impressions. And for all you Nimrods out there, share this transmission to start the chain reaction. You can be the spark that sends Aaron Baker to Congress.
And it's to that exact point. I mean, it's going to take all of us. It takes me working on the ground, like I was today, where I was at an event where it's probably about 65 people there, and then I left there and I came here. So it takes every single front possible. It doesn't take millions of dollars. We're not going to have millions of dollars like the elite oligarch class, if you will. It if I wake up in the morning and I check my email and I have $5 donations and I have $10 donations, you know what that does? That that gives me money to if you donate $10, that pays for 5 yard signs. Okay. If you donate $2, $2 pays for 40 palm cards, 40 of those bright, shiny palm cards that I hand out. Well, every dollar counts. I already have enough petitions printed to get on the ballot. We're continuing to collect petitions. People can still go to my website, download candidate petitions. You can certainly find on social media that myself, Mike, and Marcus in the 11th Marcus in the 9th Congressional District, Mike's in the 11th. We have all three of our candidate petitions right there. You could print it, sign it, you can mail it back. You can live anywhere in the state of Florida and sign all three of our petitions. You can sign 100 petitions for 100 different candidates. You can't sign 100 for one, but
If only.
Yeah, if only. I'd just sit here and sign them and be like, okay, done, thanks. No, we need 2,564 petitions each signed and certified. And what I mean by certified is that when we turn them into the supervisor of elections, if you wrote Aaron B. Baker, but your voter registration says Aaron Barrett Baker, then they may possibly kick that out. If your signature doesn't match the signature on your driver's license, they may kick it out. So, just keep up the good fight every day. You can make a difference, especially all the people that live in Florida. All you have to do is print a petition. It's going to cost you the cost of one postage stamp to help all three of us.
Well, I hope everybody listening does that. Aaron Baker, ladies and gentlemen, I said this earlier, the only answer to 1984 is 1776. Be a part of the Second American Revolution. Let's not let it get violent. We have a chance to peacefully restore the core values that our country was founded upon. Be the spark that sends Aaron Baker to Congress. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to support our show, shop at thealexjonesstore.com/Nimrod for the best selection of Patriot apparel and life-changing supplements. God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you all next week.